a lot because court and the DMV they're totally separate. You can't go to court and get your license.
He wasn't impaired at the time.
What?
He wasn't impaired.
Oh no, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying that I don't believe that he should have lost his license under those circumstances, but you would need to take it up on an administrative hearing with the DMV. There are no court remedies for it. You have to go only to the DMV. It's very specific. Sorry, someone was over here. Yes, you.
What actually is illegal in cannabis? At what point do you cross a threshold, whether you're moving toward extract or whatever, and you get down to single agent,
It would be
where you
so
break?
much more than $20 a session.
Okay.
No, okay. That's a really good question, though. You know, where is the bright line? Let me answer it with this, and I always kind of explain it like this. You're doing what you're doing, right? And everybody kind of always gets caught up in the, what can I get away with? Is this legal? Is this, is it okay if I do this? Now, is this okay if I can do this? What you should always be thinking about in the back of your mind is, what are 12 strangers gonna think? I mean, seriously, that's the worst case scenario you could be in, is you're in court, you're in trial, you have to defend yourself, and you do have to actually defend yourself because it's an affirmative defense. So you can't just poke holes in their story, you kind of have to tell your own. That's a very oversimplification of affirmative defense. Please call me if you want a more legal explanation of that. But you have to really look at the whole picture and see exactly what's going on. What are you doing? What does your paperwork say you're doing? And then what are you really doing? I mean, what's going on with it? It's just, if you were telling the story to 12 strangers, do you think they'd buy it? Do you think they'd think what you were doing was legit? Or do you think they're thinking, I don't know, this guy sounds like he's selling
I guess my question is, if you're running a testing lab and you've got standards, or whatever,
That's a specific
why is
question.
that not, what?
That's a specific question.
Okay, well, let's take it that way.
Okay.
Why is that, or is that clear? I mean, can I run a testing lab, have standards and all, and everything's fine?
Everything's fine. Well, federally, no, because you're using drugs. I mean, not using, excuse me, by consuming, but you're dealing with, you're possessing drugs. At a certain point, you're transporting them when you move them in and out of your lab. They could be construed as aiding and abetting. So federally, they can do that. Statewide, I don't think the laws are very clear with that yet. They're just really starting to even get into the idea of testing. As we start to see more and more regulations on dispensaries and how marijuana can actually be distributed, they're going to start getting into the realities of it, which is, like every other plant, it's not exactly the same, and we have different strains and different THC and CBD levels, and they mean different things, but the science really isn't there, the medicine isn't really there, and the law is very far behind. So that's the real answer to that. Yes, Mary?
You mentioned about the half pound sort of being a threshold, but the reality for a number of dispensaries is that if they're interfacing with a grower that's out of the area, then many times you're transporting considerably more than half a pound. I mean, is that you just kind of structure a different way of distribution from your grow site to your dispensary?
Yes, I've heard that sometimes half pound is more than necessary. It's a risk. To be honest with you, it's a risk. I mean, and it's just one that if you're here getting information, it's just one that you should be aware that that's what you're taking. That's the risk you're taking. Once you start to travel with more than a half a pound, it just becomes riskier. Does that mean it's illegal per se? No, not necessarily at all. And I'd be more than happy to defend the case like that. But the idea that sometimes you have to do what you have to do. There's no real. I can't give you an answer where I could say go down this street or do it this way or give this with the right paperwork. You do want the right paperwork. You do want to have those grow agreements and those transportation agreements. And I think that would be unbelievably beneficial to your defense to show that this is why you have this amount at this time. But a lot of weed in the trunk is a lot of weed in the trunk, and that doesn't mean it's going to avoid the cop from doing what the cop does.
And just to sort of add on that, the growing side is perhaps like the most unregulated, grayest part, and the place where we can give the least amount of answers, and there probably is the highest risk. So if you're the receiver of the cannabis, potentially on your end, you're fine in a defensible manner because you have 100 patients that you're receiving this on behalf of, and so it's not 20 pounds for you. The risk really is on the transporter in that time that they're transporting. So I always say the trend needs to be for the and growers are very resistant to this, for reasons I understand. They don't want to incorporate. They've been doing what they've been doing very quietly for years and years and years. And they're not interested in setting up a tax structure, and because they're so concealed in what they're doing, they're not transporting to hundreds of patients, and they're not operating a storefront dispensary and things of that nature. They choose to continue sort of operating in the dark corners. And so that the risk is more in that scenario on that particular grower and how he or she has set up their structure, if at all. And growers are very resistant to that, unfortunately.
How would they? I mean, can you elaborate a little when you talk about?
I'll go into sort of like structure, who should
She's
be
the
why,
incorporation.
why,
chick.
when.
I'm just when things go wrong.
And growers are not, you're not gonna like what I have to say.
So yes, you're the.
Could you address briefly county card versus recommendation card? And is there any guise of protection under the county card for transportation? I've heard a rumor, but I do not know if this is factual.
This is a great question. Okay. Yes. Okay. So the doctor's recommendation, sometimes the doctor will say, oh, and if you pay extra, you can get a card. The doctor, that's still just a doctor's recommendation. It's just in a new form. It's in card form, but it's still a doctor's recommendation. That is discretionary. In other words, if you get, pulled over, the cop says, oh, you have a card. Well, it's still within the cop's discretion what to do. Okay? Again, this is all legally speaking. Now you have this medical marijuana program card, medical marijuana ID card, and that's from the county. And it looks like a driver's license, very similar. Doesn't have your name on it, but has a number. They call the 800 number. They verify your number. It's like, this person's good. Great. And that's supposed to prevent you from being arrested. Okay? And no search and seizure. They shouldn't be able to take your marijuana either. And under the Medical Marijuana Program Act, so Senate Bill 420, that covered transportation. Now, in other words, it was left out of Prop 215. Remember, Prop 215 only said possession and cultivation. That's it. You can have it, you can grow it. That's it. And Senate Bill 420 was more, well, we need to move it. I mean, and there was a court case that actually realized that if I'm a caregiver and Kim's my patient, and I have to, because transportation legally literally means me picking something up and moving it. I don't have to be in a car or on a bus or on a plane to be transporting something. What they realized was, as a caregiver, eventually I have to transport the marijuana to the patient. So they realized that, wow, we really need to allow for that, otherwise we're not really protecting these people. So it covered transportation. Now, does that mean if you don't have a county card, can you transport it anyway? If that's your question. Right?
My question is it, as an attorney, would you recommend anyone who is transporting it to have their county card?
I
That's my
recommend
question.
every single person who, and keep in mind, I get 0 commission from the county for anybody who, this is not a sales pitch. I recommend that if you are engaged in a dispensary or a delivery service or a collective grow, that you have every single piece of paper that you can have. And the county ID card is a wonderful thing to have. It really helps your defense. It's huge. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You? Yes. Sorry. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. 2 questions. Actually.
Yeah.
One the crystal ball, and the other one this young lady. Banking, they're federally insured. So again, it would be illegal. I mean, I'm not going to go to Wells Fargo and say I want to open a nonprofit for my marijuana business.
Not Wells Fargo, no.
You know what I'm saying. And I don't want to have to hire you. Don't take it personally, but I never want to have to hire you.
No offense taken. I get that a lot.
Okay. How are the banks dealing with this?
That's I'll be honest with you, that's a Kim question, and the answer is, some people get lucky and get a bank account.
So the people,
Some people don't.
I have a handful of clients out of a many that had bank accounts kind of before the crackdown came a few years ago, so to speak, and they've been able to maintain those bank accounts. Now, a few other clients that run multiple businesses, and this happens to be one of 20, and so they have a really good personal relationship with their bank.
Business bank account?
Business bank account. The rest of you guys are screwed.
Well, Medbox is saying that it's a nonprofit and you have to make up a name and lie. and I will not do that.
So Melissa.
That's
yeah.
terrible legal advice.
Yeah, that's
Terrible idea. That's a terrible idea.
Don't lie, don't lie. The best thing that I can tell my clients is, and it's not the best, right? But it's the best we can do. You have your bank account for your personal checking and savings, and hopefully it has lots of money in it. Get another personal checking and savings. That's the best you can do. It's still personal, and I'd rather it be a business account, but it can't be. So the best thing you can do is at least have a separate bank account that's just for the business. But it's not advisable. It's not a perfect world, but it's better than having your personal account mixed with things coming in and out. And then you should hopefully be able to have like a payroll service that may be a little tricky too, but that will work with you on that. But you don't want to, your banking method should not be your mattress.
So basically, you don't want to commingle.
You do not want to commingle.
And really quickly, because I actually didn't touch on this as much as I should, and then you, sir, are next. Taxes.
Oh, I'm gonna get into that.
Okay, I'm just gonna talk about this really quickly. You wanna stay out of federal court, you pay your taxes, and that goes for everything, not just medical marijuana. That is, you pay your taxes. They literally invented the IRS to get Al Capone. They could not get that guy on bootlegging, on murder. That guy was shooting people in the streets, and they got him on tax evasion, okay? You have got to pay your taxes. If you are properly incorporated, paying your taxes, and you're up and down with your paperwork, I mean, like, you've just got it going on, why are the feds gonna come out, like, it's not, they can come after you, absolutely, but all of a sudden their case goes from, you're a drug dealer and we're cracking down on drug dealers to, ooh, yeah, it's not as, like, good for us when you're helping cancer patients and you're not showing a profit, and you're helping the neighborhood, and, you know, I mean, this is a political minefield that we're dealing with, so, you know, just be mindful of that, and paying taxes is the best way to stay off everyone's radar. Yes, you, sir, you might have your hand up for a while.
Do you know if you are required to get the state issued ID card in question in that county in which you reside? Must it be from San Diego County Health?
That's a good question. I believe so, because it's where you,
It is wherever you reside.
Well, it's
So,
$165 in San Diego County. And
It's-
I've been told that you can go online and get one from the city of Oakland online for the same nominal fee that for which you apply to get a driver's license, which you could get.
I'm just gonna suggest that anything from Oakland is not, like, it's not gonna be good for San Diego, just because none of the Oakland laws regarding medical marijuana are happening in San Diego, and also, it's your local county card, it's like, it's gonna give you the protections, I mean, Kim.
so I guess I will say this, like, buyer beware. There are, I'm not sure really what it is, but to me it sounds like someone's invented a really clever money-making scheme, and you're going to.
The city of Oakland issue.
Well, the city
So,
of, again,
yeah,
as Melissa said, the city of Oakland, if you reside in the city of Oakland and you have a utility bill or a rental agreement or something, then by all means, pay the
Someone
cheaper
presented
fee.
one to me from San Diego County. He said he just got it a week or so ago.
I'm
It
gonna,
didn't say anything about San Diego County on it.
I would go ahead and get it from the county where you reside and suck it up and pay maybe a little bit more to make sure that what you have is what you're supposed to have.
yeah,
because-
I can't say definitely yes or no, but I'm gonna say, once I hear Oakland, I go, probably not. Just seriously, because their laws are different than ours, from ours, excuse me, yes.
As the transportation issue, as far as having a half pound on you and having it broke up in a bunch of different ways.
Yes, okay, good question, got it.
Like 64
Yeah,
inches.
okay, yeah, sorry, one more question after this, and then Kim has to take the floor. Basically, it works like this, you're transporting it, right, there's no getting around it, but they do look at the total weight. Now, if you're transporting it because you're in a delivery service, you know, that's okay. You know, I think that's defensible. The question at that point doesn't become necessarily whether you're in a delivery service or not, it's more, are the members real members? Are you checking their recs? Are you checking, you know, I mean, like, it's more not necessarily the weight at that point, it's what are you doing? Are you just driving around feeling beat, or are you, you know, giving it to, are you really checking the recs, making sure they're in your collective, and then making sure you're not doing it with a gun? Please, no guns. Yes, one more question.
Well, let me add to this.
I know, that was like the
Clear.
worst thing to end on.
The thing that a lot of my clients, and I think Melissa's clients, get confused about is the defense is that yes, you were doing exactly what you were doing. It's just that you fit into a box where that means not guilty. So if you run a delivery service, there's no getting around that you're gonna have 20 different, 30 different, bottles, hopefully properly labeled in a professional manner. The defense is not, I wasn't really distributing it, those 8 pounds are all mine. It's okay. Don't offer that to law enforcement, of course, but the defense is, yes, it's marijuana, yes, I was distributing, but in compliance with state law. And I think that people try to sort of like create these stories or talk their way out of it, or my favorite clients are the ones who, they think they're smarter than law enforcement, and you're not. You're not gonna invent a story that's all of a sudden gonna create your magic ticket away. When you're in that situation, yes, we've all heard stories about people that can navigate it successfully and walk away, but I've heard for every one story, we've got 5 or 6. So once you're in this universe of medical marijuana and being in this industry, it is who you are, it is what you're doing. You've come to a place, hopefully, where you're okay with the risk and you accept the risk. The defense is not that you weren't doing it, it's that, hell yes, I was doing it, but in compliance with state law. That.
Yes, you sir, because I'm so sorry, I'm gonna be around later though.
Okay, 2 quick questions.
Sure.
You had mentioned a recommendation of no more than 9 ounces, half pound of weed. What about for concentrate? Did we have a particular recommendation for quantity and concentrate?
Wow, I have it written down actually. Well, yeah, first of all, no butane, no matter what, everything has to be done cleanly, with natural stuff. And that, the law, just so you know, isn't necessarily clear on that, but the law does say flat out you can't use butane. And then there's an Attorney General recommendation that says we think it's okay if it's natural. So it's still not clear, but please no butane, because that's definitely not good. The numbers are different, and I can get them to you. I don't have it memorized though, off the top of my head, but yes, the answer is yes, it's different for
Okay,
concentrates.
quick follow-up if I can. You were mentioning anyone that's in the business, so to speak, you're recommending to have all the paperwork, including the counting card. Consumers are paranoid about getting that extra layer. Would you still recommend to a consumer to get the counting card?
Okay, here's the deal. Ready? You're running a dispensary. The people that are coming into, I'm just saying, the people that are coming into the dispensary are coming into the dispensary with their valid doctor's recommendation in order to acquire marijuana for medical purposes, right? We can all agree that this is at least objectively semi-risky behavior, right? Okay. The jig is up at that point. You've already decided to walk into a store to buy marijuana. Signing your name to a piece of paper is only going to help you at that point. It's only going to help you. It's only there to protect you. By not doing it, by not engaging in that behavior, you're not off the list.
The question is the identification card.
Right.
Again,
It's
if I'm
voluntary.
gonna jump out of an airplane, I want to make sure I have 1, maybe even 2 parachutes. If when you're engaging in risky behavior, you need to make sure you have every protection necessary to you. I get that all the time, the big brother argument.
Right.
And
As a consumer.
my response is very sassy, but it's true. If you are a big brother believer, you're already on a list. Because you've Googled 215, and you've gone to the store, and you bought a probe.
Read maps is your,
If you believe, and that's my response. If you believe in that, before you're walking into a dispensary, you're on wherever this big long list is anyhow. So, get the extra protection.
Okay.
I'm going to stick around to answer questions later, but I'd like to get to Kimberly's spiel because it's pretty interesting, and she's worked hard on it. So, thank you much. I'm going to stick around.